It is Monday, February 3rd, 2025, and this is a public meeting, the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and on the district website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'm going to pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and we had participation from a few of our board members who are joining remotely, and actually to that end, we have Mr. Donaldson, who has an excused absence tonight, and also we have Dr. Temez and Mr. Jenkins, who are participating remotely. And I heard several of you, so it sounds like you can see and hear us, and we can hear you as well. Maybe we'll just do that just for a quick check. Dr. Temez, can you hear us? And
Ken, everything is good.
excellent. And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes, sir.
All right, then we are good to go. So we have a quorum for this meeting. As a reminder, I'll be using roll call for our votes since we have a number of members participating remotely, and I've enlisted the help of Melanie to use my gavel to hit me when I forget to call the roll. So we'll see if I do a good job here remembering that. Moving along, approval of our agenda. The agenda was posted in advance and circulated. I'd move to approve this agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to approve this agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Zweigert votes yes. Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Dr. Temez?
Yes.
Ms. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Ms. Ergot?
Yes.
And Mr. Donaldson is absent. That motion carries. We have an approved agenda. So we're going to move right away to our student representative reports. And we have Noah Minty and Amaya Turner here tonight. Which of you would like to go first? Amaya, please come up to the podium. And Amaya, you are a senior at East, is that correct?
I am.
Fantastic. Tell us what's going on.
Okay, so first I'll tell you guys about our student life. With the second semester finally settling in, students have begun to get their early release passes. And we recently had our senior morning meeting today, and juniors will be, well, they had theirs previously, and then seniors will, everyone already had theirs, I'm sorry. The class of 2025 has officially released their senior trip to Six Flags Great America, which will be our grad night in April. The East and West graduation committees continue to make progress in preparation for the big day in June. As class quotes and gifts have been finalized, we can't wait to see what else the group has in store. Our high school charity week will soon be underway in February as the month comes to a close from February 24th to Saturday, March 1st. It is organized by our school student council, and the special week encourages students, staff, and family to give to desiring charitable organizations. In addition to members of student council, recruit local businesses to donate as well. Our Monday charity will be the Wisconsin Humane Society. Tuesday will be St. Vinny's. Wednesday will be Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Washington County. Thursday will be Children's Wisconsin Foundation. And Friday will be Wisconsin Guardian Foundation. And then Saturday for the dance, it will be the food pantry. February is also Career and Technical Education Month. So the Association for Career and Technical Education has designated February 1st to the 28th as Career and Technical Education Month. The career and technical education classes and clubs increase graduation rates and improve academic performance through meaningful experience. As for athletics, the Ice Bears hockey team has clinched their third place in a very competitive Classic 8 conference and also won their game on Saturday, beating the Hilltoppers 5-3. Lakeshore Lightning is predicted to be one of the top 5 girls hockey teams in the state. West Wrestling beat East Wrestling 51-28 on Wednesday. and the West Bend boys swim and dive have just finished their dual meet portion of the season with a big win over Nicolay. The East dance team is also state-bound and were named Southern Regional Champions in Division II kick, second in Division II jazz, and third in Division III pom last weekend. Carson Bauer also broke another West Bend basketball record and became the all-time leading scorer for the West Bend boys basketball program on January 28th. Bauer currently has the record of 1,207 points with a number of games to play this season. Bauer broke the record set by 2021 graduate Aaron Tennies. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya. We appreciate the update. And Noah Minty will come to the podium. Good evening, Noah. And just a reminder, you are a senior at West, correct?
Yes,
Great.
that is correct. So I'm here to, as usual, update you all on the clubs and co-curriculars. So 2 students qualified for 2 separate national debate tournaments hosted by the NCFL and NSDA. This is the first time in many years that both NSDA spots have been claimed by one school. FCCLA will attend its first competition stage on February 12th in Wauwatosa. The members have been working tirelessly on their projects, so we wish all competitors luck. Skills USA Week starts today. It's a time for the West Bend Skills USA chapter to celebrate the organization's history. And West Bend High Schools presents the comedy rock musical Little Shop of Horrors on Friday, February 14th at 7 p.m., February 15th at 7 p.m., and Sunday, February 16th at 2 p.m. Tickets are currently available on GoFan. And then finally, the new West Bend United Forensics team placed first for small schools in Slinger last week, starting us off on best possible foot forward. And then that's all we have for you today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Maya. We again appreciate you keeping us connected. And as usual, we invite you to stay, but we also understand you may have some things to do. So we'll continue on with our agenda. Thank you again. Next, we have public participation. I don't see any public participation comment cards. I'm just double checking. Seeing none, we'll move then to our consent agenda. And we're going to start, and Superintendent Wimmer, if you can confirm, we're going to withdraw item E from the consent agenda, if that's right, and that is the agreement modification with EUA, and that's to permit the administration to continue some homework on that item, correct?
Correct. That wasn't ready. We're hopeful, just in case it was ready for today, but you'll see that on a future agenda, and we can certainly speak to it during the referendum update.
Great. So with that, our consent agenda then consists of minutes of the January 20th, 2025 regular board meeting and executive session. We have 1 contract, 1 resignation, 4 retirements, disbursements posted through January 31, 2025. And I believe that concludes the items on the consent agenda. I'd move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Thank you, June. We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Swigert votes yes. Dr. Temez?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson is absent. Ms. Kruger? Yes. Ms. Aragot? Yes. And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. We'll move then to reports. First, we have a compensation update from Mr. Lenny Hansen, who's our Assistant Superintendent. Mr. Hansen, good evening.
Good evening. I'll just be very brief, just updating the board that the administration and the district has been engaged in bargaining negotiations with the WBEA, and that's an ongoing process right now. Certainly appreciate good conversation as well as the time commitment from everybody that's involved. It's a lot of time in evenings, and that's greatly appreciated, and we'll continue our work and continue our communication there, always hopeful to reach an agreement, and we'll provide more updates as they are ready to come.
Great. Thank you. Board members, any questions? Sounds like everything's on track. We appreciate your update.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move then to student engagement and behavior report for first semester, and Emily Melstrand is coming to the podium. Emily is our Director of Student Services. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to report out on student progress towards goals related to behavior. I will be less brief than Lenny, but I have set a strong goal for myself to be the quickest I've ever been. I, first of all, just want to acknowledge that this is part of our commitment to the board and the community, that we provide updates twice annually about how students are progressing towards the behavior goals that we have set for ourselves. And I just wanted to highlight the fact that several of our building leaders are here with me today. And the reason for that is I get to stand up here and report about the work that's happening out at the buildings. These are the folks that are doing the really hard work. And the report that I'm going to give to you this evening really highlights their amazing work. Okay, so we have 2 goals that we set for ourselves for the current year. One of them is actually a long-term goal that stretches over the course of the next couple of years, and it really stays true to that idea that we want 85% of our kids consistently meeting our school expectations, and we are measuring that by identifying students who have 0 to 1 major behavioral referral or office disciplinary referral. And then with that, we want to ensure that 95% of our kids fall into that 0 to 5 range, really focusing on reducing the number of kids with repeated behavioral difficulties. And then short term, if you recall, over the course of the summer when we did our update based upon last year's data, we talked about the fact that we're really trying to target in students, focusing on students in grades 7, 8, 9th, and 10th, and very specifically focusing on the respectful pillar of the WBSD way work. So this slide is just a visual that represents some of the most important aspects of our action plan. I have spoke with the school board about this multiple times, but one of our primary areas of focus continues to be ensuring that students and staff know and understand the clear expectations. Students need that information so they can do what we expect them to do, and staff need that information so they can support us in reinforcing student behavior. We are focused on data-driven work. Our goals, both at the district level and the site level, is really focused strongly on our district and site level data. We are intervening very consistently across buildings, and that intervention is occurring in response to the site level data and individual student data. So when they see that a student is struggling, they're intervening with a support plan. And then the consistent and calibrated response to behavior, you see there a little icon that represents the disciplinary rubrics that we've been working on as a system. I just want to throw a plug out there. Our high school assistant principals just presented at the Wisconsin Associate Principal Conference, and they actually did a session specifically related to this and had over 80 participants who were really interested to see the work that we're doing in our district that aligns that disciplinary response. So this first chart provides an overview of our current performance. This data represents major behavior types across all 4 pillars of the WBSD way: be ready, be responsible, be respectful, and be safe. And you can see our goal is 85% or more of all of our students have 0 to 1 major office referral, and we are on point for meeting that goal at the end of the year. In addition to that, so you see the number at the top of the blue bar, and that's representing that 0 to 1 office disciplinary referral or major office referral category. But I also want to draw your attention to the red bar at the very bottom. So that's the bar that represents the number of students who are experiencing repeated difficulty meeting the expectations. And our goal is to prevent students from falling into that red bar. So the line across the bottom is representing all of the kids who have not fallen into the red bar, and our goal is 95% or more. And you can see across all of our levels that our sites are doing a pretty solid job in intervening before those repeated behaviors occur. If you look at Silverbrook in particular, they have less than 0.5% of their students who've fallen into that category, which is absolutely a celebration. So just to remind you of the West Bend Way pillars, there are 4 areas that we have behavioral codes aligned to. And at the end of last year, when we did our data review, we identified 2 areas as our primary areas of focus. We are always focusing on all of the behaviors, but we identified that if students are more consistently meeting the expectations in the Be Respectful category, it has a significant impact on our school culture. We want kids to be responding to one another, to their teachers, to their administrators in a respectful way. And of course, we want to ensure that our buildings are safe, which is why we've also highlighted Be Safe. Each of our buildings have identified a goal for their building that aligns to one or both of these categories. So this slide is going to drill down in relationship to that Be Respectful category. And again, we're looking at, first of all, the district goal, which is focusing on our 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. Our goal for the end of the year is that we have 93% of our kids in that 0 to 1 category. Because we're focused more specifically on one pillar, our expectation increases a bit. So if you think back a couple of slides, we're capturing every different category. So we're going to expect that kids might have a behavioral office referral in more than one category. But when we're just looking at Be Respectful, our goal for 7th, 8th, and 9th, and 10th grade is that at the end of the year, 93% of our kids fall into that category. And you can see right now we're on point in that area. I also wanted to highlight the fact that I think all of our buildings are doing an outstanding job. But when I look at the high school and I look at the fact that 98% of our high school students have 0 to 1 behavioral referral in that category, that's pretty exceptional. And Silverbrook is over 99%. And again, not just looking at the top bar, but if you look, or the top number, but if you look at the number at the bottom of the bar, that's showing you how many kids are demonstrating repeated behaviors in that category. And again, Silverbrook has 0 students falling in that repeated category. So Be Safe, the same visual model. And again, we're looking at how our students are performing in relationship to all of the behavioral indicators under that pillar of the WBSD way. And you can see that across the board, we have more than 98% of our kids by level meeting those expectations. And again, at the bottom of the bar, we have 3 buildings who are at 0% of their students tripping into that category. And what that is reinforcing for me is that each one of our building principals in leadership of their intervention teams are following student data. And when they see students move from the blue to the yellow, they're intervening in a way that is successful and preventing kids from moving to that next category. Okay, so I am going to just take a quick second here to highlight some really targeted and successful work that's happening at the high school level. And I promise we'll circle back at a different time to highlight another level. But I wanted to take a couple of minutes to do this because this really demonstrates that when we have clearly identified expectations for kids, when teachers are reinforcing that as well as they are at our high school level, and when our disciplinary practices are consistent and predictable, kids will do well. And Jen Potter and her AP team have been working really hard with their building leadership team to ensure those things are in place. They're circling back to talk about what's working at a building level and what's not working. But I think when you look at this data about this year's first, or representing this year's first semester, there's some pretty amazing celebrations. I will tell you, when I ran this data to see even personal tech, we have almost 98% of our kids meeting the expectation around personal technology, and that's because that team has put a lot of work into identifying what is considered a learning environment, what is not, and phones are only allowed when you are not in a learning environment. And then with that, I also wanted to just demonstrate some growth highlights at the high school. First of all, I want you to know that this data takes into account a slight enrollment change from last year to this year. It's only making a single year comparison. And some of that is to align with the work that Jen Potter has been leading at the high school. So with the reduction of about almost 3% in students, this data takes into account for that. And what we see again is that when the expectations are clear, the reinforcement is clear, and disciplinary practices are consistent, kids do well. Our students at the high school have 44% less major behavioral referrals from the same time last year. And I'm very excited about the red bar. That's demonstrating the fact that we have 55% less students who have fallen into that repeated behavioral category. So they've been intervening very successfully when kids move into the yellow, and they're preventing kids from moving into that red bar. And I'm going to kick it over to Jen Potter for one slide because I wanted her to highlight for you some of the very specific strategies that they're using that is resulting in this data.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us here tonight. First, before I start, I do want to make sure that I reinforce the amount of work our students are doing, too. They have been really, really great with helping us grow as a school, too, and providing their input. I have a wonderful principal advisory committee of students that gives me feedback each month, very honest feedback. So it's been great to work with them. One of the things that I think all groups of people, all stakeholders at our school would say is really helping is the alignment of our assemblies. And Amaya Turner had started talking about that, and then she's like, we're all through them. Our monthly meetings. So that's what it is. Every month we meet with each grade level, and we really try to use this platform to set clear goals, provide feedback to our students, challenge them to grow, and then really celebrate their achievements. That's a big part of it, is making sure that they know they're meeting their goals along the way too. We create really at the beginning of the year a shared vision for success, and we really did target it into the behavior piece of it. We explained this is where we sit. We can do better, we can improve, and we have this all instilled with us. So setting the goals really helped keep them motivated and focused, allowing the students to provide feedback to their student teams. So we recalibrated our student teams around students with admin and counseling and any other supportive staff members that circle around a student who might be moving into those different categories, and really making sure that our interventions fit the student and that we're responding fast and quick to it. I think as a result, right now, we see increased student engagement, a stronger sense of community, and a much more positive student culture. We're consistently continuing to try to grow that, but I think from where we're at, when I was standing up here last year at this time, I feel a lot better about this data. I think our students feel a lot better about this data, and our staff do too. All right, thank you.
All right, and our last slide, I want to first of all thank you again for your time tonight, and I want to end just by reinforcing that our strategic plan really hinges heavily on these 6 components. We've talked a lot about the first column, clear expectations, data-driven decision-making, and consistent response to behavior, but I also wanted to highlight the fact that throughout the process, when kids start to struggle, when they fall short on meeting a school expectation, or they start to move into that yellow band, we're working really hard on engaging families in that process, making them partners in that planning, and ensuring that we have supports both at school and at home when needed. Sean Becker continues to lead our comprehensive mental health framework in terms of ensuring that students have access to what they need when that extends beyond school-based resources. And we continue to provide our teachers with targeted professional learning to support them in expanding their toolbox to help kids when they're struggling with behavior or other related things. So I thank you for your time tonight. Certainly open to any questions or feedback for myself or our team.
Thank you, Emily, and also for the building leaders for coming tonight. We certainly appreciate this very much. I'll pause first of all. Board members, any questions? I have 1 or 2, but I'll save them to the end. So, any questions?
I do. I'm just
Yes.
curious, I mean, these are obviously trending in a great way, and I know the big focus this year has been technology. Do you guys think that the lack of technologies in school is equaling a lot of these things, like more positive energy, less behaviors? Like, do you think it's a direct correlation? Because I feel it in my own house when we go like a little tech free. So I'm just curious if you think, like, has that contributed to that?
Welcome guests to the podium also.
I'm sure any of
As you
them
wish.
can speak too, but recall that, especially at Badger, that's in their locker from the moment they arrive. It's not ever been present. There's been no shift. Same thing with the high school, because I think some kids perceive there might have been a change or a shift in policy or practice, but I think that everyone worked on consistency in those environments. So there hasn't been any shift necessarily in practice or policy, but as Jen Potter was talking about, just a lot of really clear alignment, direction, when it is and isn't, and a little less wiggle on maybe some of when they're using in that classroom. But
And I would say, I agree with what Superintendent Wimmer said. The policy, the rule has always been the same, right? The rules around cell phone usage haven't changed, but the high school has really dug into tell me very specifically what that means. What is a learning environment? What is it not? And teachers, I think, are reinforcing that with more confidence. And of course, once kids fall into the pattern of meeting that expectation, you eliminate some of the opportunities of having to be redirected and respond to correction. You're more on task. So I would guess that there's a correlation there as well.
Thank you. Can I just add one more thing
Yeah.
too?
Come on up to the podium.
I think there's a difference too at high school, and this is something that my principal advisory committee talks to me a lot about because they would love to have cell phones in their hands, but to use them responsibly. And we have these nice young people going off into the world who have to go to the workforce, and they will have cell phones on them there. They will have personal technology. So we're constantly in a space of really trying to think about what that responsible release looks like for a student. So we just started today that our library lounge, if students earn that, if they're showing they're responsible citizens, can use their personal tech in that space. So we're trying to find different opportunities where students can express that and have that, so that they can take that into life with them.
Board members, other questions? That was one that I wanted to ask, so I'll just cross that one off the list. And just proceed to the other, which is, and I think it was on your last slide, the category of clear expectations. How, I don't know if it's a specific example, but at least generally, how do we align, or how does the administration align expectations at the administration level, communicating it to teachers, parents, and kids? I mean, that's a lot of communication.
Yep.
So how does that work generally? And I'm sure there are different examples of different, but can you address that generally?
Absolutely. And I'll reference the example related to personal technology. So Jen Potter, she's working with her building administrative team, her building leadership team, which includes representation from teachers across the buildings, and then also her student advisory team. And prior to the year starting, those groups of individuals worked together to say, this is the expectation. This is how we're defining what this rule means. And then that came back. You did presentation at your staff meetings. You have consistently put that in newsletters to families. It's always in the handbook, but it's really keeping that message alive. And even in that monthly meeting with students, that's being put back in front of students regularly, not just the expectation, but how are you doing in meeting that expectation? So like any kind of communication and education in this educational system, it's the opportunities to put it in front of people again and again and again, but it's also the process of gaining their input in that decision making. And I love the example that Jen Potter just gave about her student advisory committee, because they are legitimately coming forward and saying, okay, I get this, but can't we do this, or how could we get to that? And when kids have ownership in that process and they feel represented, they're more able to meet those, more motivated to meet those expectations.
Thank you.
Is that all right? Anything else? Okay.
Last call, board members, for any questions. This is a topic I know that you've addressed in front of this board, all of you, for years, and it's important to the community, it's important to the board. We really appreciate it, and I also appreciate the data-driven approach so that we can watch and see progress. So thank you for bringing this to us. We appreciate it very much, and all of your
Thank
hard
you.
work on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next report is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Just a reminder to families that 4K enrollment is now open for the following year. We offer 4K in 7 different locations with our community partners. So we have Kettle Moraine YMCA, Montessori Children's House, Jackson Community Center Rec Department, Living World Child Development Center. And in fall, you might have seen some articles. We're excited to use our very own Outdoor Science Education Center for one of the 2 nature-based programs that we operate with the YMCA. So those students would go to Holy Trinity in Newburgh 2 days a week, and then our center located near the high school's building 2 days a week for that nature-based play program. So current 4K students, you will be automatically enrolled in kindergarten for the coming year. If you're new or want to enroll at any time as a new student starting with us, you can do that. You can do that right on our website to start that process. You can report here to the Education Service Center and start that process. Give us a call and we can help you navigate. But currently our 4K enrollment is open and accepting students. Just a final reminder that community members, staff, students can all nominate any employee of the West Bend School District to recognize their outstanding contributions. So the Rolf's Education Foundation Award gives 4 awards with $1,000 each to a teacher in each of these 4 categories: elementary school, middle/intermediate school, high schools, or special service educators. There will be up to 5 Support Employee of the Year awards given from among aides, drivers, clerical, custodian, maintenance, professional technical staff, school nutrition. So each of those recipients receive additional monetary awards. All nominations for both awards are due on March 21st. We'll continue to publicize that on our website, in our school newsletters, and communicate that with families. So again, nominations for staff awards are due March 21st. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions, board members, for Superintendent Wimmer? All right, hearing none. Thank you for your report. Next, we have discussion items, and we have a referendum update. And to see Mr. Harder and Dr. Wimmer approaching the podium.
So we will tag team this. So one of the pieces was a contract amendment. We've been working on some schedule pieces, so I'll let Tim speak to that. But just a reminder that the vision team for Jackson, as they're kind of in design phase, they've been doing some meeting. We have representatives selected from that school. They've been doing some design work with EUA and Findorf partners, and then they in turn took that to their school. They invited all members of their school community, all their staff, whatever their role, teachers, secretaries, custodians, everyone, to talk about what was important in developing their vision for the school. So that work is kind of complete, and they're kind of taking iterations of what that would look like in design. You saw some other contracts come forward. We'll come out and start marking property, starting to do some things will start looking like they're happening on property at Jackson as well. And then our school leaders were also engaged too as they think about projects, because every single building will be touched in some way, what teams will be needed for their school. So we might not need a whole school team, but certainly as we look at secure entries at our schools who do not currently have them, we need to engage, whether it's our school police officers, that front office staff, all of those in that design work, anyone who's impacted as we redo those suites, as we look at a lot of our upgrades, we're in our early learning classrooms and incorporating updated plumbing and fixtures and toileting rooms in those. So then we'd be convening those teams. So we're starting to identify all of those teams. One of the biggest pieces that Tim's been doing, though, is kind of putting those into a schedule and a lineup so we know who to convene when. And another, before I kick it over, another small piece, you identified those financial partners. So we've started preliminary conversations with financial partners, and I'll kind of give you that teaser of expect March board action. So that's when we're looking at bringing that financial plan to fruition and looking at formal board action so that we're able to lock those rates that are favorable for us so that we can do the borrow and all those pieces so that we can really accelerate these projects. So just kind of putting that in there, but I'll let Tim speak to the significant work that he's done with his team on the timeline and deliverables there.
Good evening, board members. So if you remember back through the referendum process, we looked at a project timeline for a variety of different things. So to recap, the Jackson project is on schedule as we look at putting that whole design process. So as Dr. Wimmer mentioned, going through meeting with visioning teams and so forth with a targeted date of doing what most people will see visual work on that site a year from now. So we're really about a year out from that, but if you were to go down there this week, you'll see a small contraption drilling some small holes, doing some surveying work and all that kind of stuff, starting to look at placement, what type of soil we have down there and all that as we start the design process for the school. This evening, we're hoping to have a contract amendment or a modification for you. So if you remember, we signed contracts with both of our partners. As we solidify schedules, timelines, other partners, subcontractors, that comes back to the board regularly for updates. One of the things we've been doing over the last week is working with our EUA and Findorff partners on scheduling for the ability to start work this summer at multiple sites. And so right now we are temporarily targeting the concept of working at Green Tree McLean and a portion of the Badger project this summer. And so that would allow us to start the potential next school year with safe and secure entrances, the indoor work done that's been identified, and so forth. And so those teams take our feedback as we look at all the scheduling pieces. How do we take certain facilities offline? What has to go potentially to the city for a plan commission approval? So we would hold off on, for example, Green Tree's front parking lot and entryways would all get redone. That may get held to a later point in time, but our intent at this time is to be able to do significant work at Green Tree McLean, and then Badger would be the gym and the bleachers, that section of the building this summer, with about 90% of that work done by the start of the school year. And so it's a tight timeline, but both our team and our partners are committed to do that, and we're looking forward to be able to see some of that come to fruition this summer already. Any questions?
Just one general question. So if we take Jackson Elementary as an example, certainly if there are things that happen in the existing building, kind of a break fix, like the heat goes out, needs to be fixed, clearly. But at the same time, if maybe there were a roof that was in need of repair that normally we'd say that deserves a more permanent solution, that may not necessarily be the case given that that building now has an estimated limited life. Can you just very generally describe how that's kind of gone into the thought process?
So I'm glad you brought up the heat thing. So that has happened where a unit goes out, right? Or we need to get a part for it. That is going to happen even after we exit the building if we still own it at that point in time, because we need to make sure we have basic heat in there so you don't freeze pipes and so forth. So we are doing those types of things. A couple of years ago, similar to what you asked about roofs, Chris, they did the same thing. So instead of redoing this entire section of the roof that you would normally see come in, it was, hey, this section, this small section is being done. We're going to fix that right here. So we're going to make sure we have secure buildings. We're going to have buildings that, don't let water and air in them and those types of things. How we approach the repair might be different. And depending upon what that dollar amount is, you're going to look at that of, hey, can I find a way to make this work for 3 or 4 more years, 2 more years, or is this truly, hey, the whole unit's shot and we just don't have a choice to replace X, Y, Z at that point?
Thank you. Board members, other questions? June?
So when we were talking about bringing the referendum question forward, we had some working sessions. Do you anticipate us needing additional working sessions for different pieces of the work ahead of us?
So we went a little less work, so those teams will be engaged in that. When we get some things that we could have a visual for people to wrap around, we started working as a full Jackson staff, how to engage students, families, and the community in some of those pieces. So we would anticipate running some engagement sessions, if you will, that way. For that feedback. And then in talking with our partners, they anticipated a spring update where they're coming before the board with some more comprehensive renderings and pieces. They said at that time when you kind of secure some financing pieces, plus bundle it together together with some renderings for the board to really look at and review, that would be another really big milestone. A little less about workshop format, more of a reporting and a fine tuning. So as we get in along the way, we'll continue to update on pieces. Right now, they're very high level conversations around how they collaborate, what did they see when they went on tours, those kinds of things, so.
Other questions? All right, thank you for the update. Appreciate it. We move then to future agenda items and our board meeting calendar. Here are a number of meetings that are scheduled upcoming here in February and the beginning of March. And all these meetings are currently scheduled to take place at the Education Service Center. Curriculum Committee, February 11th, 4:30 p.m. Board meeting, February 17, 5:30 p.m. Policy Committee, February 25 at 4 p.m. And a board meeting, March 3rd, 5:30 p.m. And again, we encourage the public to look for the official postings for the date and the time, as those are potentially subject to change. Any questions with regard to the board calendar? Hearing none, then it's time to ask the board if there are any items for follow-up and communication. All right, well, hearing none, we have a matter that is appropriately discussed in executive session. So I'd move to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation and employment, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E to deliberate concerning conducting public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. So that is my motion to adjourn into executive session. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, June. Motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Any final discussion? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. Dr. Temez?
Yes.
And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ergot? Yes. Mr. Swiger votes yes. Ms. Kruger? Yes. Mr. Donaldson is absent. And Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We are officially adjourned into executive session. Thank you to everyone for